I can't remember the last time we had a mailbag on this program. It used to be a staple, and now that we're in the offseason, it's time to dive back into a Locked On Bengals mailbag episode.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Liscow. He's your host, James Rapien. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network here on Locked On Bengals, bringing you coverage of your team every day, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube, where you can subscribe and join the, what are we, nearly 14,000 subscribers? Do I have that right? On YouTube.
Almost Ken Anderson's 14K. Yes, sir.
The thousands of others who listen to us make us their first listen every day. You can follow anywhere you get your podcast on audio. And today's episode of Locked On Bengals brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the NFL. You can make every moment more with FanDuel at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Going to be a mailbag today, James, and we've got some good ones, including some questions about some topics that we were going to talk about anyway, like drafting wide receivers.
Yeah. That's me laughing at the idea of, my evil villain laugh. Why? Because you know how much I love drafting receivers. And let's dive into the mailbag. Let's start with, in reminder, at Locked On Bengals on Twitter. We'll do these mailbags probably weekly throughout the offseason. It could vary. It could be bi-weekly if we need to. But we're going to be doing them a lot, so you need to follow on Twitter. And Tasha B. kicks us off here saying, I've already seen 100 mock drafts on the timeline. How come none of them have a wide receiver? Don't the Bengals need to draft a wide receiver?
On the one hand, need is a strong word. We'll see. A lot happens between now and the draft. On the other hand, we were talking about this yesterday. When's the last time the Bengals went 2 drafts in a row without drafting a wide receiver? And I'm sure many of you went to go look it up. 1996, 1997. The Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon drafts. Willie Anderson, the Bengals' 10th overall pick, first rounder in 1996. Corey Dillon, of course, the second rounder in 1997. That's the last time the Bengals went 2 straight drafts without drafting a wide receiver at all. Now, there are some years where they were lean at wide receiver. 2006, 2007. In 2006, the Bengals drafted Ethan Kilmer, who was a wide receiver in college, played safety in the NFL, and Benny Brazell, who I don't think made the team as a wide receiver in the 7th round. Both those guys, 7th round picks, didn't draft a receiver in 2007. This comes after they had Chad Johnson and TJ Hushmanzada and Kelly Washington and Maurice Mann and Chris Henry and Tad Perry as draft picks in the years prior. So a lot of receivers there, right? The other recent example that we found was 2019, 2018, where they almost made it 2 drafts without drafting a wide receiver, but drafted Auden Tate with their 3rd 7th round pick in 2018. So technically they did draft 1 receiver in those years. And there's a couple other examples like that. 2015, 2014, Mario Alford in the 7th round, James Wright in the 7th round, the only receivers they picked, but they picked 2 receivers with draft picks, right? And so historically, you have pretty good odds that the Bengals are going to draft a receiver this year. If you could go find a prop bet that was Bengals to draft a receiver anytime, you probably wouldn't get very good odds, but you'd probably be pretty likely to win your bet.
95% is the number. Remember? That was off the dome that I gave it. And early, what was it, late last week? Maybe it was early this week. I don't know.
Not yesterday?
The drafting of a receiver? I don't think it was yesterday. Right. Yesterday was the Mike McGlinchey, right? We've talked about this.
Time is a flat circle, man.
It is. And that's the part. 95%. I think it was Sunday, by the way, for our Monday show. 95%, though. After hearing that, I'm going to go up. 99%. This Bengals team is drafting a receiver. And part of that, and I think both of us are confident in this, and I'm certainly confident in this, they were open to drafting another receiver during the Chase draft. And I think they wanted to last year, and it was just tough because they had to trade up to get their targets, and they were at the back end of the round, and guys were going off the board, flying off the board, and they weren't sure who they were going to get. That's why you trade up for a Cam Taylor-Britt. They moved up for Tyson Anderson, I believe. You do that to get guys that are on your board, but if they didn't have to move up, I think they would have probably gotten a receiver anyways. I think it's all but guaranteed that they draft one. Now, to Tasha's question, most mock drafts are only the first couple rounds. A lot of them are just the first round at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's pretty unlikely that they draft a receiver in the first round. Open to it in the second round. I could see that if they looked at it, and it depending on who was there, but I still think that that's unlikely. I would say if I had to put you mentioned the prop bets part, the odds, I'd say rounds 3 to 5 is probably the sweet spot. And then everything after that, 6 and 7, they'll just take BPA. It might be a receiver. It might be a fifth edge rusher. It might be, that third linebacker. It might be whatever. And we've seen that in recent years where it's just kind of BPA, especially at the end. But I could totally see receiver rounds 3 through 5 is probably where they would target it. In an ideal world, obviously it could be sooner. You never know, especially in that round two spot.
And that's without putting too much thought into this particular draft class, right? Like,
Sure.
We haven't looked at this draft class very much, and who might be there and where they might be. Doesn't sound, as I understand it, like an incredibly strong draft class at wide receiver. Certainly not top heavy. There's no, there don't appear to be, and who knows? Like, maybe some guy shakes out of this as a true number one. There doesn't appear to be that dominant number one, like a Justin Jefferson, although Justin Jefferson wasn't picked where he should have been, or Jamar Chase. So it does depend a little bit on that. I was just looking also while you were talking, James, and that 95-96 was actually the only time in Bengals history.
Boom.
When they went
99
drafting a receiver in 2 straight years.
I just went from 95% the other day to 99 to now it's 99.99999%, baby. That's what we've just done, Jake. 99.999% that they're going to take a receiver, which, by the way, I love. Give me
a lot of late round receivers, a lot of day 3 receivers in their history.
And they've hit on some of them. For sure.
TJ Hushmanzada is the best example of that. There's a little bit. Marvin Jones, another great one. There are obviously some examples in there, but you don't hit very often at that point, but sometimes you do. Auden Tate, 3rd, 7th round pick, contributor. Let's get one more question in here before we move on. The Bengalorian, hi Bengo, would like to know, speaking of odds, what are the odds that we get a full-on uninterrupted offseason for Joe Burrow this year?
Pretty good.
Really good,
I mean,
right?
what I'm not even going to ask, but I'm going to. What else could happen? He's already missing the appendix. We know he's healthy. He's begun his offseason training plan. He's about to get really, really rich. You hope nothing else happens and he can just maybe they could think about letting him throw a pass or two in the preseason and it not be, oh, he's coming off of a knee injury. Oh, he's doing this. Oh, he got the COVID year. Or he's got appendicitis and he weighs as much as James does when James has 2 Built Bars. Like, maybe we need to get to a point where, he's at that 215 pounds, all jacked and shredded and ready to go and fully healthy, because that's the one thing that he hasn't done a great job of. And, there's been some national, and not necessarily his fault, but it's not like they've gotten off to great starts in recent years from his numbers standpoint, even when they started 5-2 in 2021. And, there's some national buzz, right, about MVP next year. But you want to keep that buzz going as you take off midway through the year like he has, but you want it to start by getting off to a 3-0 start and having, 12 touchdown passes in 3 weeks.
Putting up some gaudy numbers sure would be nice.
Early.
Like, just
if he's going to win
numbers. Let's do some stupid numbers instead of like
some stupid numbers.
This game management stuff and winning
50 touchdowns.
You know what? I'll take 10-game win streaks instead. Couple 10-game win streaks where they count. It's better than the touchdowns. But why not both?
A couple?
Yeah.
That's 20 games, baby.
Well, never said I was great at math. Let's do some more questions coming up next. We got some either ors in here, James. Some draft, make a pick. Who do you want in some scenarios? We got a Joe Burrow contract question to get to as well. So let's continue in our mailbag coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the number one sports book on the planet. And at the midway point of the NBA season, it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, FanDuel. They have a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That means you get those bonus bets back up to $1,000 if your first bet doesn't win. You just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. And FanDuel lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. What does that mean? Well, you can do a same game parlay with LeBron James and take, let's say, the over on his points. Let's say you want to go with the over on his rebounds. You could combine them. You can mix in Anthony Davis, the number of misses at the rim he's going to have. Oh, a shot at Anthony Davis. The number of bricks D'Angelo Russell is going to have. This suddenly became an anti-Lakers segment. It's not, though, I promise. So if you want to wager on the Lakers or any of the NBA teams, well, you can do that and so much more at FanDuel. Don't miss your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 at FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
James, Adam Wheels has a question for us at ACWheels10 on Twitter. Best case scenario from a Bengals perspective, from the team's perspective for Joe Burrow's contract, what does it look like?
Best case. Wow.
Let's say best realistic case.
Yeah, there you go. He goes year to year and just takes
year to year would be awful. You don't want that.
Not if
then you have to deal with re-signing him every year.
$2 million per, and he's willing to do it. $2 million per.
Lock it in. Just 10 years, $2 million a year.
No. He wants he wants to re-up every year because, anyways, all right, that's unrealistic. I think the best case realistic scenario would be long term. Lock him up for 8 years on top of his 2, kind of like we talked about with Andre. But the thing that we haven't talked about, and I've kind of ruled out because I just don't expect them to do it. But you never say never, especially tease up as well. And there's a lot of mixed opinions on him and whether or not they'll be able to retain him, certainly nationally. Maybe it's Burrow actually does take a little bit of a haircut and takes a team-friendly structure, but also gives them a little bit of a discount. I don't expect it, but if it's best case scenario, maybe you're talking $45 million per instead of 52 or 54 or whatever the case is. I don't think he's going to sign up for a $40 million contract or a $45 million per year contract. But if we're talking best case scenarios, I think that's probably it. And I do think it is longer term because then that's going to give the Bengals future flexibility and they can move things around as needed, hopefully. And then the other part of this, could they do the rolling guarantees? If so, and they went that route, then it would allow this Bengals organization to not have to spend as much cash this offseason, put that much cash into escrow.
$45 million a year is Patrick Mahomes' deal. It goes to show you why signing these guys as early as you can for as long as you can is generally good for the team, because now Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers all make more than Patrick Mahomes. And you can really blame Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson for essentially a 10% spike in salaries for quarterbacks.
My God, Russell Wilson.
$49 million a year for Russell Wilson on a $245 million contract. Aaron Rodgers, $50 million a year on a $150 million contract, obviously shorter term. But, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, 45, 43.
Speaking of 45, I think 45-year-old Joe Burrow will be better than Russell Wilson in 2023. Like 2023 Russell Wilson.
Sean Payton's going to unlock. He's going to fix everything.
No, he's just going to hide. He's going to hide Russ for 2 years, and they're going to cut him.
He's going to fix everything. Anyway, I think 45 is a bit rosy, to be honest. I think if you can get him long term, that's the best case.
Yeah. And you
get
might
him
be
long
right.
term at 50, 51. It's not 55. It's not 53. It's a little bit lower, maybe. That's the best case. You're avoiding another 10% spike. Then maybe that's a realistic best case. But and the team friendly structure, like we said, we talked about it with Andre. So go back and listen to the episode with Andre Perotta a couple weeks ago now. Andre Perotta, we talked about a Joe Burrow contract structure, what team friendly would look like, where those guarantees could come in, when the cash would have to come out of the Bengals bank account. Got into a lot of those details, spent a solid 10 minutes on it, maybe longer. So you can go check that out in a previous episode. But yeah, I think that something like that keeps Joe Burrow on your team until he's 38 or so, 37, 38, that range is a pretty dang good outcome for the Bengals.
Yeah, it would be. And I agree with you. I think structure is so much more important than 51 versus 48 or 55 versus 53.
The lower the number, though, the better your flexibility is going to be in the future.
No doubt. No doubt about it. I'm just saying, if you had to pick one,
yeah,
you would rather the structure that is going to be team friendly. So we'll see there. Let's get to our next question here. And this one's interesting. Mike Bittenbender. Who is the player currently on the roster that you think makes the biggest jump in 2023?
Dr. MBFP on Twitter. Dr. Bittenbender, thank you for the question.
Dr. Mike Brown, financial planner, is what I'm going to call him. Go ahead.
Dr. Mike Bittenbender, football player.
There you go.
What's the question?
You got one? Or you want me to answer?
The biggest jump in 2023, the easy, obvious answer to me, James, is Dax Hill.
Yep.
Going from a non-starting role to a starting role, as Joe Goodberry pointed out, and we've talked about on the show before, when he tweeted on Tuesday, excellent athlete, elite productivity, still young. Really like Dax Hill's chances to become a plus starter for this team. When he's thrust into that role, I know that, the rookie year wasn't what we imagined it might have been for him. He didn't get on the field a ton, but that's the one that jumps out the most to me. There's a couple other guys on the defensive side of the ball that are honorable mentions, but I'll let you give your answer before we get to some honorable mentions here.
When I read that one, Dax Hill was obviously the first guy. And really like Dax, liked him before the draft. I think he's going to be really, really good. And so he's the obvious one. Without him, I would say Joseph Osai could be one. Still young. The injury part is a question mark, but certainly flashed towards the end. I think that he has another level to get to. Akeem Davis-Gaither was young. I don't know if he's going to be an every down young when he was drafted. I don't know if he's going to be an every down backer, but heck, right now could he be a 2-down backer for them? Because Jermaine Pratt doesn't think that they used him as an every down backer either and wanted to be out there more on third downs. Could Akeem Davis-Gaither be out there on second and third downs and make a bunch of plays? Maybe. So that would be the other name I would mention, because I think he's in for a much bigger role, assuming that Jermaine Pratt leaves in free agency.
I think there's a bunch of guys on the defensive side of the ball you can make cases for. Joseph Osai and Akeem Davis-Gaither are the two that stand to gain the most playing time next year, because Cam Taylor-Britt is a starter now, but Cam Taylor-Britt, as the year went on, got better, and another offseason game slowing down from year 1 to year 2 for corners could be a year for him. He has a very clear idea, I think, of the things that he wants to get better at. Can attack those this offseason. So Cam Taylor-Britt, another one there. And some under the radar guys, Zach Carter, Cam Sample, both of those guys showing late season progress. We've talked about all these guys on the defensive side of the ball as guys that really did make some strides late in the season. And then on offense, it's a bit harder to find the candidate for is it Joe Burrow? Is it Jamar Chase? Go ahead.
That's exactly like, what if Jamar goes for 2,000 next year?
I think it's those guys before I think it's Cordell Volson, to be honest. And I know a lot of people are probably thinking, Cordell Volson, year 2 offensive line jump, but he's so old coming into the league. He kind of was what he was. There was some improvement. He could get a
So
little bit
old.
better. For a rookie.
No, I agree. He's like 8 months younger than Jonah Williams. It's
Right.
crazy. It's insane to think about it from that perspective. Yeah.
Right. I mean, Burrow is also old for a rookie coming into the league, relatively speaking.
But younger than Cordell.
Yeah.
Cordell had that extra year, and yeah.
And he could certainly take a step. I'm not saying that he won't take a step, but I think some of these younger guys on the defensive side of the ball, that's where I'm looking for this question. Coming up next to finish the show, you got more questions, James.
Rapid fire.
Let's go.
Ooh. All right, rapid fire. John Callison at John Callison 4. If you had to pick one, Joe Mixon taking a pay cut or Samaje Perine playing for around $4 million in 2023, which one would you pick? Dum.
So the Perine at $4 million comes with a Mixon cut. Is that the either or here?
Yeah. So yeah, Mixon after taking a pay cut or Perine at $4 million. I assume that's what he's saying. Is Perine is maybe not the main guy, but the one of the two veterans, left versus coming back and Perine going elsewhere.
I think if you're saying Perine's around $4 million, that means you're investing a day 2 pick at the latest into a running back as well, with some explosion to his game. I still think I'm leaning Perine here because I think that there's a net savings and cap dollars there that you can spend elsewhere to improve your team in bigger ways, and your running game suffers a little bit. But like you said yesterday, James, there's going to be a constant conversation around Joe Mixon this offseason until a plan becomes clear around what they're doing with his contract, what they're doing with him as a player. And he just doesn't seem, and we're going to talk to Mike about this too. News to you, James. Something I want to talk to him about is how does Mixon fit in with this offense going forward? Or how easy is it to talk about, skill set fits for Joe Mixon and the kind of offense the Bengals want to run with Joe Burrow? Because to me, it seems like Perine at a lower dollar amount, and it might not even be 4, might be 3.5, might be 3.25. I don't know what Perine's actually going to get. There's reasons for me that Perine is a more attractive option between those two.
And by Mike, he didn't mean Mike Brown, Jake, Matt, Mike, Santagata, Bengal Sans, just for any new listeners that thought maybe we're having Mike Brown on. Maybe one day, but we certainly wouldn't ask him about Joe Burrow's rushing or Joe Mixon's rushing usage if we had Mike Brown on anyways. I don't think that would be a hot topic. Next question.
I got you.
Okay. All right.
Kyle.
There we go. Kyle.
At Burrsheisty9. The Twitter names that are just riffs on Joe Burrow's nicknames are impressive and creative and endless in their permutations. Kyle at Burrsheisty9 would like to know at 28, James Rapien, would you A, take best player available, B, take the best offensive tackle regardless, or C, trade up in the first round for the guy you really want? This kind of fits with Gavin Patrick's question as well. I want to shout him out. GPatrick4603 on Twitter asked, how likely is it that the Bengals trade the first rounder for a player? So talking about some trades of the Bengals first round pick with these questions.
All right. I'll rank my preference for Kyle. My preference is always, take the best player available. Now, if there's an obvious BPA that's worth moving up for, that would be second. And then the third would be just taking an OT to take an OT, because that's what they did with, Cedric Ogbuehi and guys like that were just, this makes sense. It fits. Or Dre Kirkpatrick at corner. Oh, we need a cornerback. He's the best one there. Well, then it's just mad picks or busts. And Dre wasn't a bust, but he was certainly not great. That said, Gavin Patrick, this is the outside the box thinking that someone like myself loves. Yeah, of course. I would trade 28 right now. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers willing to give up Tristan Wirfs? Probably not. Who are you getting with 28? I mean, that's the challenge. And
how many first round picks do you think Tristan Wirfs would get? 3? 2? Laramie Tunsil package? Yeah.
Probably 2. Would you do it? I would.
There's a pretty dang good argument to make.
You're drafting so late. Yeah, you're drafting so late. I would. But
I think I would too. Tristan Wirfs is incredible. I think it would cost more than 2 first.
Maybe it would.
He's so young.
Maybe it would. What a pick for them. He was like the 4th tackle drafted in that class, which is crazy.
So good.
Crazy to think about that. He was the guy that fell to the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
In that, what was it, 2020, I believe, 2020 class. Right? Yeah, that was Burrow's class. Yeah, that was Burrow's class.
A couple years ago. Yeah.
Anyways, so how likely is it? It's highly unlikely, Gavin, but I love the thought.
Outside the box thinking. That's what we're doing lately.
I think we have 2 more here. Luke asks Darnell Wright, Michael Mayer, who are you taking at 28? And I will just give the disclaimer. We can obviously change our minds on this. This is so early in the draft process. A lot of things have to unfold. But as of today, if the draft was today, based on what you know, Jake, who you take?
Darnell Wright is a tackle? Is that correct?
Oh, Jesus. Yes.
I can't answer this question, man.
Oh my God. You want me to
there yet.
Okay, I'll answer it. All right. You want me to answer it?
Yes.
Okay. He is a tackle out of Tennessee. He's 37th on Dane Brugler's big board. I know that much. No, I'm taking Michael Mayer because I think it would have a bigger impact right away. I don't know if Darnell Wright would start. And that's the part where you just don't know. And that, again, that's today. Jake was like, is Darnell Wright a tackle? So that's where we're at. But as of now, and part of it is I watched a decent amount of Notre Dame and I know of Michael Mayer, but he was a game changer for them. And I think he could help the Bengals for sure. Okay, last real question.
Hold on. I got some information here that I can talk about for Darnell Wright because our draft sheet is in progress. So here's what we got on Darnell Wright that makes him an attractive draft prospect. All right. He's going to be 20. He's going to be younger than 22 when he gets drafted.
Okay.
His average big board rank as of February 18th was 56, roughly. So maybe a better comparison. I don't know. It depends on your preference. Anton Harrison, average big board rank, 35. Younger.
Dane Brugler has him much higher. So that might be why the question was the question.
And Joe Goodberry has a first round film grade on Darnell Wright. So that's fun. PFF data, not so great. Pass blocking, better than run blocking. These are the things that we have documented so far in our draft sheet on Darnell Wright. Interestingly, Joe Goodberry assigned the same film grade to Michael Mayer.
Yeah, he's a stud. I told you.
At tight end. They're both first round grades. And Mayer also going to be younger than 21 at the time of the draft. Average big board rank for Michael Mayer, 16. So there you go. The bona fide first round consensus TE1, Michael Mayer.
Yeah,
I would probably pick the tight end, given the disparity in perceived quality of the prospects at this point. But I don't know that, as you said, will change.
Yeah, could change. I'm in on Michael Mayer.
I barely know who these people are.
Last one. Ray without the A wants to know who would win in a game of Madden between you and me.
When's the last time you played Madden?
I played Andrew, like Cincinnati Bengals talk Andrew, for those wondering, for the first time in Madden, like a few months ago. And it was the first time I played Madden in years, and I won. So there.
I haven't played Madden for 3-4 years now.
All right, then. I'm 1-0, so I'm undefeated.
You're 1-0. Back in college, this is like when I last played a lot of Madden.
On PS2, keep going.
Was it PS2? No, it was PS3. I'm not that old. Yeah. It was PS3. Maybe it was
on Atari.
PS2, I don't know. Last time I played Madden was in a dorm tournament my freshman year of college, and it was a single elimination, and I lost in the final by 3 points on a walk-off field goal.
Wow.
So I was pretty good at one point, but the last time I played Madden, I was consistently frustrated with how bad of a job it did at simulating football. So I think it would be tight. Do you play a lot of Xbox? Will we play on Xbox or PlayStation?
It won't matter. It doesn't matter. I beat Andrew on Xbox, but
I got to play on PlayStation. I've never used an Xbox in my life.
Madden's Madden, man.
The controllers are different in your hands.
You got to play PlayStation. Well, now I want home field advantage. Xbox. It doesn't matter to me. Just we have a coin toss with both systems.
Well, we'll get it going.
Apparently, Madden is views this as a make or break year for them.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, we'll see if that's actually true and they actually change things up or
We'll have
just keep it
to
the same.
we'll have to run it up. Training camp. I plan to
fine.
be in Cincinnati for training camp this year, so
Man, maybe we could have a. All right.
there's an
I need
opportunity.
to consistently play Madden if we're going to do some kind
No,
of
no, no,
Madden
no, no,
tourney,
no.
but-
We both go in blind.
Oh, just us two? Yeah, that's fine. I'm not
If we're
worried
gonna
about
play,
that.
yeah, we
I ain't
both
worried
go in
about
blind.
you. I thought you meant like opening it up to the listeners.
Oh man,
You're good at like games that I would never be able to be good at, but I think I
That's
would win
true.
in Madden because you haven't played in a while.
yeah, we got to get people asking us about some strategy games. Shake James's confidence a
Like
little bit.
Risk? Like, yeah,
No,
you whoop me
that's
at
not a
Risk.
strategy game. That's a game where
yeah,
you
it
roll
is.
dice.
There's strategy in Risk.
Let's play
Are you
chess.
serious?
You want to play chess?
You'd win in chess right now.
Yeah. All right.
I used to be pretty good at chess.
Let's get out of here, James.
I'm like you in Madden. Used to. Washed up.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. We had a lot of fun, a lot of good questions in the mailbag this week, and we will continue this feature throughout the offseason. So if you want your question answered, as James said, at Locked On Bengals on Twitter is where all of this happens. And I know we have YouTube comments now, so if we're on top of it, maybe one day we'll get organized enough for that. But for now, at Locked On Bengals on Twitter, get those questions in for the next time we do a mailbag. Got plenty of programming coming this week. So we'll be back tomorrow. Until then, Bengals fans, hoo day, and have a good one.